This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. A subscriber over on the website who goes by the name of The More Power, who shares a lot of great stuff along with everybody over on the website, posted this in the forum, and I felt the need to share this because it's a very suspicious posting that was made in regards to changes and restrictions when it comes to Airbnb on a specific day. So on 6624, which of course, if you do the math, 6 and then 2 plus 4 is 6, Airbnb is changing their policies in regards to a major disruptive event. Now, this is obviously something that should make people suspicious, especially when you start reading between the lines of what they're talking about in regards to either a major weather event or, of course, some type of public health emergency. So you would think that they would have put these restrictions in place back in 2021, 2020, but they didn't. Now they're putting in a few restrictions in regards to public health emergencies. And of course, we all know that they keep telling us about this mysterious disease X. And the only people paying attention are the only ones that understand what's going on, because other people out there suddenly think it's normal for all these diseases to pop up, so much so that the government needs to put in things like specific treaties in place so that the next time it happens, they could have full authority to lock everybody down all around the earth. So some of the things that Airbnb changed, and people are suspicious of this because of the wording of a lot of it. So for starters, the declared public health emergency. Number 2, government travel restrictions. It says this only happens to mandatory travel restrictions that are imposed by a governmental agency, such as an evacuation order. Okay? Next up, there's military actions and other hostilities, acts of war. And again, these aren't things that Airbnb has had in their policies before. Then they have large-scale outages of essential utilities. You may cancel if a prolonged outage of essential utilities such as heat, water, and electricity affects the vast majority of homes in a given location. Then it goes on to say natural disasters. Natural disasters and other severe weather events are covered if they're unusual and sudden. The new Airbnb policy would cover such weather conditions that would result in mandatory evacuations or large-scale utility outages. So in other words, these restrictions are only in place if the government declares some type of emergency. And the fact that they chose this date is very suspicious. Not just because of the fact that 666 is very suspicious, but also, if you remember the film that I covered, Leave the World Behind, where they have the mass power outage, you know, Barry Soetoro Obama, who's one of the producers of the film. Well, during that film, they played a baseball game on the screen between the Nationals and the Braves, who happen to be playing one another on June the 6th. So there's some theories going on around that. Now, I'm just doing this to point this out to you because anytime we see suspicious behavior, we have to look and keep an eye on it, how these corporations are wording. Remember, it's an American corporation, okay? So all these corporations are in the know, and of course, they only put these restrictions in place to protect their own rear end. So let me read the specific wording here from this article. On June 6, 2024, Airbnb will implement a significant policy update, transitioning from the extenuating circumstances policy to the major disruptive events policy. This change has not only caught the attention of guests and hosts, but has also spawned a myriad of conspiracy theories. Speculators ask, what if Airbnb knew something that we did not? Echoing themes reminiscent of the 2012 movie, the movie 2012, where elites had foreknowledge of disasters. That's, of course, because that movie was telling you the elites had the foreknowledge of the disasters because they were creating the disasters. But the inclusion of government in the new policy has particularly fueled these suspicions, suggesting that the company is preparing for undisclosed catastrophic events. Now, another thing I've been covering on the website, and I'll continue to cover there because you're not allowed to cover here, is this treaty that they're trying to get passed, officially passed in May. This treaty's already passed. The only reason that you see any pushback from other countries in regards to the treaty is they don't want you to be suspicious that they're just forcing the treaty on you. They want to pretend. They love doing this stuff. As if, oh, well, they're just going to make sure that this is okay and that's okay. Oh, and they're going to go maybe have disagreement about this or that. They're all in 100% agreement. All these countries have sold out their citizens. They're all in agreement because once that treaty is in place, once that treaty is signed, we sign away all of our rights to health organizations. Okay, our governments give our rights to them, and then they override the government, and they could just declare an emergency going on around the world and have everybody locked up and put all these rules in place. And then the government could just shrug their shoulders and go, well, we're not the ones doing it. Okay, we're giving it to the experts. We're giving it to the scientists. We're giving it to the people that understand this. The rest of you don't understand. This is what's in the best interest of everybody. And then we're all screwed royally. So the inclusion of government in the policy has particularly fueled these suspicions, suggesting that the company is preparing for an undisclosed catastrophic event. It says online platforms such as X and Reddit are abuzz with various theories suggesting that Airbnb's update hints at government foreknowledge of impending disasters or societal upheavals. Keep that in mind as well, societal upheaval, because we're seeing that going on. We're seeing them nuking the infrastructure of our country. And of course, we know any upheaval that occurs is going to be started from within. It's not going to be organically done by citizens. They're going to make you think that conservatives and patriot movements are going to be responsible for these types of things. But this will be a full-on government op. So Twitter users are voicing a common suspicion, questioning if the policy revision is in response to an undisclosed event in June. Such statements have led to rampant speculation about the reason behind the precise timing of this policy update. Many people on social media suspect that Airbnb's timing for a new policy suggests they might know of an upcoming disaster or major event that the public doesn't. Of course they do. They know these things ahead of time because they're the ones who plot it and plan it. And they make sure that they're all hidden away when they create these things so that they're never held accountable for if people actually wake up to what's going on. So it says this suspicion reflects a common concern that corporations and governments might not always be transparent with the public. It says, is this why Airbnb and other corporations are changing their terms of rebate, etc., due to, quote, the event? June 6th, I think, is a date mentioned also. Plenty of others are changing terms of service, adding some kind of an event. So we're seeing other corporations also adding June 6th to their new terms of service, which is really just, like it said in the beginning of the article, major disruptive event, moving from extenuating circumstances policy, which would be like, okay, grandma died, you had a trip plan, can you provide proof that grandma died and get a refund? Sure. It's going from extenuating circumstances to major disruptive events, which means, obviously, again, some type of catastrophe that they would create. That's really what we're talking about here. So it even goes on to talk about that theory I said from Leave the World Behind. Users are linking the policy change to specific dates and referencing pop culture, such as movies, to find patterns or hidden meanings. For instance, some noted that Airbnb's change coincides with a significant date in the Airbnb disaster movie, Leave the World Behind. Because again, in that film, Airbnb was very prominent in that film, right? Where they're coming to stay at the home, etc., vacationing at an Airbnb, right? So the movie was executive produced by former U.S. President Barack Obama and First Man Michael Obama, which deepens their suspicion. Front of you, like I slipped that in. I'm not sure if anyone has mentioned it before, but while rewatching the movie, somebody paused it to see, like I mentioned earlier, the two baseball teams on the screen were the Nationals and the Braves, and they happen to play each other on June the 6th this year. Preparation for crisis. The discussions often focus on being prepared for emergencies like new government lockdowns or power outages, suggesting the policy update is Airbnb's way of getting ready for such events. Airbnb warns of upcoming travel restrictions and blackouts. It looks like new lockdowns and travel restrictions under whatever pretext are to be expected after June 6th. And keep in mind, when it comes to travel restrictions, the stuff that you keep hearing about Boeing, the stories you hear about people on planes attacking one another, attacking flight attendants, having to land planes because people are unruly on the plane, these are all strategically placed stories, okay? They're preparing us for an event to happen with the plane, because currently they're just preparing you to be afraid to fly because there's crazies on board, et cetera, right? And the mandates they just recently had on board were making people not want to fly. But they're going to do a couple things with a couple planes. They're telling us already with the Boeing stories, okay, that they're going to down some planes to make people afraid that it's not safe to travel anymore because part of this new world order, you ain't going nowhere. Your carbon footprint is already telling us that ahead of time. If the carbon footprint's in place, you're not getting on a plane and flying anywhere. You're not going to be allowed to. You're going to be a prisoner, remember. So it goes on to say some I was surprised the article actually mentioned it, but some reactions include interpretations of the policy update using numerology or other symbolic meaning, seeing these as clues or hidden messages. 662 plus 4 is 6, or 666 symbolism. Airbnb's new policy mentions a few things that can trigger conspiracies, such as government-declared epidemics and, quote, government travel restrictions. They say, here's exactly what the policy says. Declared emergencies and epidemics, government-declared local or national emergencies, epidemic, pandemics, and public health emergencies. This does not include diseases that are endemic or commonly associated with an area, for example, malaria in Thailand or some type of fever that you might potentially get going to a different country. Government travel restrictions, mandatory travel restrictions imposed by a governmental agency, such as an evacuation order. This does not include non-binding travel advisories and similar government guidance. The conspiracy surrounding Airbnb's policy update in 2024 and the plot of the film 2012 share a common theme of secrecy and foreknowledge about catastrophic events. In both narratives, there is a suspicion that elite groups or corporations have have information about impending disasters that the general public does not have access to. And of course, what they don't mention, or any of these things ever mention, is the fact that the government themselves create these impending disasters with weather modification and weather manipulation. Nobody wants to believe that exists. They just think that they see on a radar that something's coming, and they decide to hide and not tell anyone about it. They're creating these events, and they're going to blame it on things that aren't real, like solar flares, etc. Right? This will be them attacking from within. So, goes on to say in 2012, the government and certain elites are depicted as having advanced knowledge of the Earth's destruction, preparing for it by secretly constructing arcs to save a select group of humans and species. This plot element reflects a deep-seated fear and suspicion toward authority figures and the belief that they may not always act in the public's best interest. Yeah, no crap. They say similarly, the speculation about Airbnb's policy change suggests that some people believe the company, possibly in collaboration with governments, might be preparing for a major disruptive event that has not been disclosed to the public. This is further fueled by the inclusion of government in the policy and the precise timing of its implementation, which conspiracy theorists find suspicious and potentially indicative of insider knowledge. And then it goes on to say, here's a clarification of the policy changes. The major disruptive events policy aims to provide clear and specific guidelines for cancellations in the face of significant disruptions, such as natural disasters, pandemics, or government-imposed restrictions. This update seeks to mitigate disputes over eligible cancellations. Airbnb, who hosts were active during the outbreak crisis, remember with dread how the company bypassed this extenuating circumstances policy in March 2020 and let guests cancel any booking worldwide. So a host-friendlier policy and clarifications are more than welcome from Airbnb. So, I mean, again, they say the rationale behind it is that Airbnb introduced these changes to enhance clarity and fairness in handling reservations. But clearly, anybody who's paying attention knows that something else is coming, that something else is in the works. Agenda 2030 is in play. It's going to take more of this stuff. It's going to take more lies, more deception, and more laws and regulations in place to gain more control and authority over our everyday lives, which eventually will include our every single movement. They say that Airbnb is denying these allegations, saying that it's just a response to past challenges and user feedback. But wouldn't you think that they would have put this in place in 2022 after everything was lifted, 2023? They're putting it in place now at the same time when we have these people coming out in January and February telling us that disease X is about to come. It's not a matter of if it comes, it's a matter of when it comes, which means it's a matter of when they decide to just put it on the television set and tell you about it, to start and start locking people up and start putting more restrictions in place. So it's a matter of when, right? When. And on top of that, we know of the treaty that they're trying to pass at the same exact time, which they're trying to pass in May. So once we get through May, then we have June 6th. We have the whole summer here. And don't forget about the stuff they're going to do around the fake election. There's going to be things like this that pop up. Everybody's going to think it has something to do with rigging the election one way or other. It's going to cause utter chaos. There's a lot of chaos that is going to ensue in the coming year. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm preparing you for it. They've been telling us for years about the power grid. We know that they're using weaponized weather like they've never used it before. And we know they have plans for disease X. So tie all those things together and you have utter chaos along with a fake election where people are under such a psychosis. They're literally going to uprise and revolt based on who they decide to put in office in 2024, who they decide to win the election, even though the whole thing is fake, one side is going to go nuts. Both sides are, whichever side doesn't get chosen to win is not going to believe the outcome of the election. They've been prepping them for it, conditioning them for it with all these boogeymen. They will not believe it. So all these things are coming to a head now in 2024. So we have to keep an eye on all of them. And this isn't some conspiracy. This is literally Airbnb and other corporations coming out with new policies as we get close to this treaty being signed about a major disruptive event. A major disruptive event, and it goes into place on June 6, 2024, which is 666. So, yeah, anybody paying attention could clearly see something's coming. Just a matter of, like they say, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So be prepared. I thank everybody for being here. Thanks again to the subscriber over on the website, The More Power, who shared it, and everybody over on the website who's sharing great information. And I appreciate everybody who's over there. Thank you guys again. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always and your families.